Welcome to the Go Next Traveling Owls webinar through Destination Debut. My name is Shannon Burnett. I'm the Assistant Director with Alumni Programs in charge of the Traveling Owls portfolio. And I'm really only here in case any Rice or Traveling Owls specific questions pop up and to kind of monitor that chat. So I highly encourage you to take advantage of the brief 30 minutes that you have with Go Next and Mike to learn more about his company and the 2022 Traveling Owls trips we've partnered with them for. First, I do want to provide some friendly Zoom reminders. We ask that you keep your audio on mute when you are not speaking or asking a question to cut down any background noise. We love to see your smiling faces on video. That's definitely not a requirement though. Mike is going to give an overview of the program and his trips and then leave some time at the end for questions. If any questions pop up in the meantime, you're welcome to put them in the chat and I'll make sure we circle back to them. And then once we've answered all the questions in the chat, you can take yourself off mute and ask them directly to Mike. His video is pinned as well as his presentation, but it is also helpful to be in speaker view mode, perhaps at the end so that you only see the presentation and the presenter. And now I'd like to toss it over to Mike Maglione from Go Next.
Thanks, Shannon. Appreciate the introduction. It's always nice to have an opportunity to speak to the Rice Traveling Owls. And we're excited to talk about our 2022 programs today. And in fact, we'll even talk about a fall 2021 program. Go Next is a leader in alumni travel. Many of you have traveled with us in the past. We'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. And we know alumni travel. We work solely with affinity groups, and we know what it takes to provide that atmosphere on board to really help engender group dynamics within the Rice group. We offer an exclusive, highly quality and best value product. We have exclusive relationships with all of our providers. And this means price integrity. You always have the lowest price. And in some instances, you'll have lower price because we contract our pricing 18 months in advance. So if prices go up, you're still grandfathered in the lowest price. We offer full turnkey services before, during, and after the cruise. And we have guest service reps always available to help with any of your inquiries. On the trip itself, we have experienced travel Go Next program managers who are there to assist you. Most of them have their hospitality desks adjacent to the ship's concierge desk. And again, they're the ones who are responsible for all the onboard activities, whether it be private receptions, hosted group dinners, group photo, and any other special needs you have, just use them. They're there for you. We operate small to mid-sized vessels, which provide a nice array of different dining options in addition to public areas, so you can spread out, which is really great in this time in travel. And we also provide both pre and post trips to the ports, the beginning and the ending ports, should you want to spend more time in those places. Obviously, a topic of interest for everyone is how, as we move forward out of the COVID era, all the cruise lines have really stepped up when it comes to establishing health and safety protocols. Oceania was one of the first to create what they call the Healthy Sail Panel, and with Scott Gottlieb, former CDC official. And this is basically the document they took to the CDC to help lift the cruise ban, which is now set to be lifted in mid-July, pending some final details. Oceania has what they call a sail safe policy. This means vaccinations will be required, as well as rapid testing and embarkation, electrostatic defogging in the staterooms, HEPA filters in the staterooms, social distancing, and all the things we're used to. Yet on these ships, it's nice because like I say, things are spread out very well. And so you never felt, even before COVID, that you were in tight quarters and amongst a lot of people. American Queen has the same. This is our domestic river boat company, and they also have a similar program called Safe Cruise, and their sister company Victory Cruise Lines will utilize those same health and safety protocols. As I mentioned, our partners, one of our first trips will be this fall. This is an October departure on the new American Countess. It's part of the American Queen Steamboat Company. They operate 4 vessels in the U.S., the American Queen, the Duchess, the Countess, and the American Empress. Countess was just christened in this last March. And it's really a neat experience to utilize these paddle boats on the rivers, which give you a complete different perspective of the areas you visit. Seeing the land from river is much different than from land. Our first trip is our fall foliage on the Mississippi, going from St. Louis to Minneapolis, October 3rd, price from $25.99. As I mentioned, this is the Countess. It's christened in March. It's a brand new vessel and one of the first to be able to operate under the new CDC guidelines. So we had staff on there that went through all the protocols and it was very well conducted. What's unique about American Queen is that they also have a fleet of motor coaches that look like the vessels, that travel with the vessels up and down the river. And these motor coaches provide what we call hop-on, hop-off inclusive shore excursions. So there'll be different, let's say you're in a city and you have 5 different destinations that you want to visit. There'll be marquees set up in front of those destinations, and the motor coaches make rounds about every 20 minutes. So you can stay at a location for 20 minutes or for an hour at your own pace. And it's really nice. Go back to the ship and go back out again. These have been voted top domestic shore excursions for several years now. And the hop and hop off are very popular amongst our guests. And also now with the health and safety protocols, we have control over the motor coaches as well. The bus drivers travel along with the motor coaches, of course, up and down the river. So you have a familiar face every day of the cruise. The Countess, it's a little bit different from their traditional American Queen vessel, which is more of a traditional ship. This is more of a contemporary vessel. This is the lounge and bar area on board. This is the grand dining room. Nice served breakfast and lunch buffet, and then sit down dinner. There's also the grill, which is a full buffet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as an alternative dining venue. And then they have a small area, America's front porch, where you have snacks and those type of things that are basically 24/7. This is a example of a veranda stateroom. So you can see they're very modern, very spacious, and got great reviews from all the press that were recently on the vessel. As I mentioned, this trip starts in St. Louis. You can do a pre-night in St. Louis, a one-night pre-night in St. Louis if you want to tour St. Louis, but we'll transfer on the 3rd to Alton, Illinois. And Alton's very famous for the eagles that migrate in the fall. People come from all over the country to see in the rocky ledges above the Mississippi the eagles that are nesting, and with their binoculars, it's really interesting. It was a great time to be in this area. We'll also then travel up to Hannibal, Missouri, obviously the home of Samuel Clemens and the stories of Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn. We'll have an opportunity to see the white picket fences, and you'll be engaged by the River Lorian, who's on board the vessel. Obviously, the name infers both a historian and one who has lots of river lore, and the combination brings to light a very entertaining description of history up and down the river, and some things you might not have known before. Then we're on to 3 ports of call in Iowa: Burlington, Davenport, and Bettendorf, up to La Crosse, Wisconsin, ending in Red Wing with the famous Red Wing boot store, the big boot outside the store, before we transfer to Minneapolis for the flight out. So it's a nice, beautiful fall foliage program in October. Again, American Queen will be utilizing health and safety protocols, including mandatory vaccinations. On to our 2022 programs, starting with our Oceana. I mentioned Oceana as our kind of our flagship product. They're a 5-star cruise line. All vessels have open seating dining, as well as private restaurant dining and buffet dining, all at no additional cost. They also employ on some of their ships a culinary cooking school, an award-winning spa, and they've been voted the last 6 years the best cuisine at sea. And you know why, because they put more money in the foodstuffs than any other cruise line in the world. We'll be enjoying the regatta in Polynesia, our Legends of Lagoons program, departing March 6th through the 17th. This program starts at $45.99, and that price includes airfare from 90 cities throughout the US, including major gateways, and also includes round trip transfers, which is new for 2022. So the transfers from the airport to the hotel and back, or I'm sorry, from the airport to the ship and back are included, as well as you have a package of select shore excursions. That detail includes, as I mentioned, about 90 airports, about 28 major gateways, free hotel, airport to ship transfers if you're doing a pre-trip. And then stateroom, you actually, per stateroom, you actually include in the price, you have your choice of free shore excursions. It's usually about half of the number of ports of call. A shipboard credit or beverage package. So there's a lot of value added included in our Oceania product. And the nice thing is it's a one-stop shop. So once you make a call, everything's included. So for instance, you don't have to hang up and then make a call to see what the airfare is going to be, because everything's included in the service offering. Just a couple things when we come to, as I mentioned, fine dining on board. They have the grand dining room, as I mentioned, is open seating. You just come in anytime between 6 and 9 p.m., choose a table and sit down and enjoy dinner. Or you can actually make reservations at two of the alternative dining venues or restaurants. One is Toscana's, which is an authentic Italian restaurant. Everything's booked, is made on board, including the butter, fresh pastas, fresh breads. They have an olive oil tasting table. It's really an exquisite experience. In addition to the Polo Grill, which is an authentic American steakhouse with any cut of steak you like. And then Red Ginger, which is a menu that's the actual restaurant isn't on the regatta, but their menu is served in the grand dining room. It's a very popular restaurant that are on some of the larger ships. We'll begin by flying into Papeete. From the US, we usually get in there in the evening, so you'll see sunset over Papeete, Tahiti, which is on the western end of the island. We'll have an opportunity to visit about 6 ports of call. The highlights, which include Bora Bora, always the most popular itinerary or destination, with its lush green jungles, and obviously the little thatch hutted roofs that many of the hotels employ now when it comes to offering a very exquisite vacation and relaxing environment, going out on the jetty to these very well appointed private veranda type residences. And you have an opportunity to go into Tahiti early if you wanted to enjoy some of these at Papeete. The second largest island is Nuku'alofa, which is well known again for its wildlife, its clear blue water, which is unbelievable. I mean, the water in Tahiti is some of the most clearest I've ever experienced. Here you'll have an opportunity to see some of the places where some of the artists live that were inspired: Robert Louis Stevenson, Herman Melville, Jack London. It's just a beautiful, literally a paradise. It's something that everybody should see. We go on to Fakarava, and then we come down to Moorea before we end in Papeete. Moorea is a beautiful island with stunning landscapes, the white sand. It's a great place to do some scuba diving, some snorkeling. Araratia waterfall here is most popular. Many people enjoy the hike to it. It's not too treacherous, but again, just a very leisurely experience. And what's very unique about Polynesia is the lack of development. Once you get out of Papeete, Tahiti, the capital where all the business and industry is, when you get in these other islands, you're not going to see many drive-ins or signs and advertising. They've done a very good job of keeping it very minimal when it comes to expansion and development. And that's what really surprised me is the lack of development in a lot of these islands, which really makes it special as well. A great experience and a great time to go in March of 2022. Our next program is a program in the summer on the Rhine River on Emerald Waterways. This small private Australian-run company that provides exquisite stateroom type vessels with a lot of options to provide at a great value. It's actually a sister to the Scenic ships, and this is their typical stateroom. And what's neat about it is what we call our French balcony. So you can actually, that railing there, there's a glass that you hit a button and the glass comes down to create your balcony. You can bring that shade back and the curtain back, and then you can create your own balcony, or you can shut it and bring the window up and it expands your stateroom. So it's a great way to enjoy the scenic river as you roll by and enjoy some fresh air, or you can put up the window and make it, as I mentioned, part of your stateroom. In addition, they have satellite TV. They have actually a very interesting app that you can utilize on your phone that will provide both the narration from the tour guide, so you don't have to wear headgear, and they give you the headphones and everything, or you can actually have a self-narrated, because it's got GPS in it as well. And so you can walk towns off the river and gives you maps and everything on this app. It's very, very high tech, and it's very helpful for folks who want to go on their own, being able to, get some narration of what they're seeing, as well as the maps on how to get back to the ship. They also have many venues, dining venues, which are nice as well. Most river ships don't have the multiple dining venues that the Emerald has. As I mentioned, this trip will begin in Amsterdam and will go down to Cologne, Koblenz, all the way down into Strasbourg, into France, into Basel, Switzerland, flying out of Zurich. Obviously, one of the highlights is going into Amsterdam. You'll have an opportunity to go in early. The capital of the Netherlands. It's has a Van Gogh museum, and also the Keukenhof, which is known for its being the largest flower garden in the world, actually. And every 10 years they have the Floriade, which is the big horticultural event. And this is a kind of a quintessential look at Amsterdam with its canals, its flowers, and its well-known bicycles that are everywhere. And it's just a great walking town. Down the river, we'll visit Cologne and the famous Cologne Cathedral, designated a UNESCO Heritage Site in 1995. Of course, it's well known for the fact that it withstood the bombing of World War II and was really the only structure left after the bombing. And so it definitely is the signature of Cologne. We'll go down the river, we'll visit Koblenz, Mannheim for Heidelberg, the famous college town, and then we'll go into Strasbourg, the most German town in France, as they call it. It's actually in France, and it's a beautiful town with some nice canals, interesting architecture, and a great walking city with some great restaurants as well. We'll end in Basel, Switzerland, and a great itinerary, a very leisurely itinerary, and a great way to do it. Our next trip is going to be another domestic trip on Victory Cruise Line. Victory is a sister of American Queen, and they employ two 100-cabin, 200-passenger vessels. We'll be utilizing the Victory 2, starting in Toronto, and going to Chicago, July 14th to the 24th. It's priced at $54.99. Obviously, domestic cruising is very popular now. We believe there'll be a big surge in domestic cruising for people who perhaps just don't want to go to Europe just yet. And again, Victory will be employing their own health and wellness protocols as well. This vessel was newly renovated just about 2 years ago. Have great staterooms, very well appointed with the soft pastel colors. Here we have the observation deck as well, where we can on nice days do private receptions. The Shearwater dining room is, again, an open seating dining room. You come in during a certain time, and this is a sit-down breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Then we also have a upper aft grill, again, that has buffet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you have two venues for dining. Again, this is the sun deck. People can relax on nice days. Then we have the tavern, which is the basically the lounge and the tavern. And the lounge is where we do our cultural enrichment lectures. And this, again, is the taverns where folks accommodate after dinner and enjoy perhaps a drink. And then I mentioned the grill, which is, this opens up, these windows open up. So on a nice day, those windows will be open. And again, that's a buffet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then we can do private receptions there too. But what's nice about it, used to be all open, so it was, you couldn't use it all the time. But now they put these sliding windows there, even in inclement weather. It's a nice venue if you don't want to have a sit-down dinner, you just want to do a quick buffet of some sort. As I mentioned, we start in Toronto. Included in this trip is a one-night stay in downtown Toronto in a hotel. Then the next morning on day 2, we'll disembark from Toronto in the shadows of the CN Tower there. Obviously, a very cosmopolitan city with more ethnic restaurants than in most cities in the world. And it's a very eclectic city. We'll move down to the Wayland Canal. We'll go through Port Colborne, the port of Port Colborne, into the Wayland Canal, coming out on the other side where we'll disembark and visit the Great Niagara Falls with the 2 American and 1 Canadian falls that make up the falls. We'll see it from the Canadian side. And it's just a very great experience if you've never seen Niagara Falls. It's quite a view with the mist coming off the falls. We'll then go on to Cleveland, probably one of the most surprising cities I've been to in the last couple of years with the gentrification that's gone in Cleveland. We'll actually dock about 2 blocks from the aquarium here, or the Rock and Roll Museum and aquarium. And we'll have little trolleys that'll take you throughout the city. And it's a great downtown area, very cosmopolitan, very modern. Like I say, a lot has been done to Cleveland, and the aquarium and the Rock and Roll Museum are 2 of the highlights people enjoy the most. We'll be on to Detroit, where one of the highlights will be going out to the Henry Ford Museum. This is an open air and inside museum with all kinds of different displays on different history to do with automobiles and transportation. They have an old Holiday Inn reconstructed inside. They have all the presidential limousines from Eisenhower to Reagan. They have all different old cars and new cars of all types, not just Fords. And it's a really interesting museum. And then the open air museum is more of architecture type of structures. So very nice, well worth time museum to visit. One of the highlights after, we'll stop at two small ports in Sault Ste. Marie and Little Current in Michigan. One of the highlights will be visiting Mackinac Island. This is a motorless island, which the highlight is visiting the Grand Hotel that overlooks Lake Michigan. This is in the very upper part of Lake Michigan. And this time of the year is the best time to be there, known for their kite flying and their saltwater taffy, and a great walking paths and bicycle paths. And like I say, motorless, so they have golf carts and horse-drawn carriages. And this is a neat time to sit and enjoy the weather. This beautiful view from the front of the Grand Hotel out over the lake. And then finally, we come down to Chicago, and we actually disembark at Navy Pier. That's really a difficult place to disembark, believe it or not. Not a lot of ships to disembark at Navy Pier. American Queen's part of the Hornblower Group, and they actually own all the ferries and all the boats at Niagara Falls and a lot of the ferries at major cities. So they have access to the Navy Pier, which is great, because if you want to spend a few days in Chicago before you head back, you're literally right there. You can almost walk to any hotel if you want to stay. And then, of course, transfer back to the airports as well. So that's our domestic trip, Toronto to Chicago in the Great Lakes. If you have any questions, feel free to list them here, or I'd be glad to address any questions you have. For those of you who are participating with us, Shannon's going to put it on the screen here, and I'm looking for it, but I have a code that I will give you. And if you want to sign up within the next 7 days, you'll get a $100 discount. And of course, I can't find the code right now, but
Just put it in the chat.
yeah. So Shannon will post it in the chat, and just tell them you participated in the Rice Traveling Owls destination debut, and provide them that code, and we'll give you an extra $100. So with that, I'd be glad to address any questions you may have.
There were a couple of questions that came through while you were presenting, so I'm going to get to some of those, and then we'll turn it over to everyone. Two that I think kind of go together is Sydney asked if these trips were open to the public or if they're just for alumni groups. And then Alan asked how many passengers are on each of the ship programs. So those kind of go together.
Good question. So yeah, what we do is typically, obviously on the bigger ships, we'll usually occupy, when I say we go next, we usually occupy anywhere from a third to half of the ship, depending on the group size. Again, we pool all of our associations, so you'll be on these trips with, you know, anywhere from 4 to 8 other university alumni associations of the same ilk. So you'll be our Go Next group is solely comprised of university alumni associations, and that will be a subgroup of the ship. That being said, as I mentioned, we have staff on board that actually stay on the ship, so they're very well versed in the Oceania staff and the American Queen staff. Victory staff are very well versed with our groups, and we usually dominate the ship, although there will be other public on the ship from wherever. But in most cases, everybody's kind of got the same profile. Now, that being said, there will be social distancing and limited capacity on a lot of these ships. So for instance, the Oceania vessel to Polynesia is a 685 passenger vessel. And once 2022 comes around, and things are changing every month, but I foresee that there probably will still be a limitation where that ship might only be able to fill to 2/3 to 3/4. So in this case, you're probably talking, you know, maybe 450, 500 passengers on an almost 700 passenger vessel. And then of that group, we'll probably occupy anywhere from 200 to 300. So maybe a half of the ship. The same ratio would be the same on the American Countess. The American Countess is a 245 passenger vessel. And because of its and by the way, the square footage per passenger on all these ships are one of the largest in the industry. So the square footage of public space and staterooms per passenger are much larger. So you don't have to do that much, as much social distancing, because there's a lot of space already. But that being said, there will be limited capacity, I'm sure, going into the winter of 2022 and probably summer of 2022, although hopefully we're over by then. Again, the Scenic vessel is 169 passengers. The Victory vessel is 200 passengers. The Oceania vessel is 685 passengers, and the American Queen vessel is 245 passengers. And if you were to, you know, knock off 20–30% of that, that's probably what the capacity will be at the onset.
Yeah, I think you got it. There's a couple of questions about various pricing. I did go ahead and post the upcoming trips Traveling Owls website page. You can see all the dates and the starting prices there. And then once we get brochures, we link them out there too. And that kind of explains a little bit more of the deck plan. So if you were interested in that 2021 fall trip that Mike talked about, that brochure and all of that information is linked out on our website. If there's any specific pricing questions, I'm trying to scroll through and see. You're welcome to take yourself off mute and ask Mike directly, or I also open it up to any other questions you've got.
Guess we did a good job, huh?
I think so. And we're right at time. So if there's no
Great.
questions, I will go ahead and conclude us. And that's really just to say, if your questions pop up later, this isn't a one-time only thing. You're welcome to reach out to Go Next directly, or like I always say, you can start by emailing travelingowls@rice.edu. and I'll work with Mike, or maybe I know the answer. That would be great. And I can give it to you right then and there. But we'll take care of you either way. I want to thank Mike for presenting on his trips, both the 2021 and 2022 trips that we have with him, and all of you guys for joining us for 30 minutes. I hope to see you at future events. Oh, is there something else?
Yeah, I tried to ask in the chat about the single pricing on the Mississippi one.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Single pricing. I believe the Countess has a couple single staterooms, and then you'll have to call, because what it is, it's based on capacity and availability. But I think they do have a couple single staterooms. You know, feel free to call our number and they can give you all the details.
I'm going to put that number in the chat too. Any other questions? There's that number. All right. Well, thank you so much again to everyone. And we'll see you at future events.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.